Welcome to Central News, I'm Hilary Entwistle. In today's news, the first regional final for the ANZ Young Farmer Contest takes place in Whangarei this weekend. And the Waikato Bay Plenty Regional Finals will be held next Saturday, 16th of February, in Hamilton at St Paul's Collegiate. The contestants will partake in a range of activities involving hay bales, mastitis, fencing, quad bikes and all things farming. They will be battling for a spot at the Grand Final in Auckland, 16th to the 18th of May this year. Contestant Operations Manager for New Zealand Young Farmers, Hilary Phillips, says young farmers will benefit by being able to compare themselves with others.
The skill development is a really great thing, and just growing as a person. I think the contestants say they learn so much about themselves, and one of the aspects in the evening show is to present a speech, and none of them like doing it, but they just gain so much from it, and they really do come out the end such great positive communicators and speakers. And so whilst they're being pushed into doing something there that they're not that comfortable with, they really do value that opportunity at the end.
Waikato Uni students are solving the world's problems one app at a time. Team Opportunists is one of two teams from Waikato to secure place at the 2013 New Zealand Microsoft Imagine Cup finals by developing a vaccination/medical records smartphone app designed for third world countries. The Microsoft Imagine Cup, the world's largest technology competition, invites tertiary students from around the globe to create software using Microsoft applications to find real solutions to real-world problems. This year's students were asked to choose from one of three categories: innovation, world citizenship, or gaming. For first-year management students Jess Howes and Michael Watson, the choice of world citizenship was easy. Having spent time in developing countries like Cambodia and Ghana, the pair was fascinated by the unrestricted access to technology in such poor living conditions. Now for our region's weather for the weekend. Both our regions are looking sunny for the whole weekend, so pile on that sunscreen all weekend long. Hamilton, Saturday long fine spells with a southwest breeze. Your expected high is 26 and an overnight low of 11. Tauranga, Saturday fine with westerly breezes. Your expected high is 26 and an overnight low of 14. Hamilton, Sunday for you is going to be just like your Saturday, long fine spells and a southwest breeze, and an expected high of 26 and an overnight low of 11. Sunday for Tauranga, sunny with westerly breezes. Your expected high is 26 or so, and an overnight low of 15. Just ahead, the toxic copper in our harbours. Welcome to Central News on TV Central. Ports around the country are said to be at risk from copper concentration levels being above the guidelines for protection of marine life. I spoke with the principal scientist of NIWA to find out how.
Antifouling paints are essential to use on vessels because of the need to stop organisms growing on the bottom. And years ago we used to use tributyl tin on a lot of vessels, but that's largely been outmoded these days because of the toxic accumulation of that. Now most all vessels use copper that stops the organisms growing on the bottom of the vessels because it's toxic to those organisms. There's some other additives that go in the copper as well. Sometimes it's a bit of zinc that's added to the paint. Otherwise, the major other compounds are a compound called diuron, which is an organic compound that they add that makes it more potent, stops the organisms.
Why is the copper necessary?
Basically, it's readily available and it fits into paint formulations well and is quite toxic to organisms. It's a cost thing, and it can be held in the paints in quite high concentrations and lasts a long time, slowly leaching out to cause the mortality of anything that wants to attach to the bottom of the boat.
So you have just completed the recent study in the Auckland ports. What did the study find?
This was a study funded for the Auckland Council that followed on from some work we'd initially done for the Environmental Protection Authority. There we looked at a range of marinas around Auckland and compared some of our modelling predictions with the concentrations that were observed in marinas around Auckland. The surprising thing to us was that concentrations of copper in the water, this is away from the boats, this is just copper leaching out of the boat hulls, was markedly higher than the water quality guidelines, and much higher than we would have expected in those environments. And actually the copper coming out of all the marinas and the shipping around Auckland added up to more than the copper going in from stormwater, which was our previous major concern for copper in the harbour environment.
And how does copper get into our stormwater drains?
Copper from the stormwater largely comes in from car brakes. In order to make your brake pads more efficient, they put copper in them, it disperses the heat, and it makes your brakes work more efficiently. It's quite a well-known source of copper off your roads.
Is this a problem nationwide in our marinas?
We did the measurements around the Auckland harbour in order to validate a mathematical model that we'd used throughout the country. And predictions for quite a number of our marinas, both in Wellington, Picton, Nelson areas, were that there'd be particularly high copper concentrations in those marinas. And actually including one of the small marinas in Lake Taupo, the Kinloch Marina, has particularly high copper predicted as well. So it seems like it's quite a universal thing that we might expect.
So tell us about the modelling tool that was configured to assess ports for copper concentrations around the country.
There we put together we used a European model that's been widely used in Europe and overseas generally. Puts together the actual configuration of the marina, the depth of water, the tides, whether it's got an open mouth or whether it's got floating barriers around the marina. So a whole lot of physical things, puts the water quality into there. And then we put in the number and size of boats, as well as the leaching rate of copper that we might expect over the type of paint that they're using. And you put all that together and it'll predict both concentrations of copper in the water and in the sediments as it accumulates with time in those marinas.
So is the copper rising to the surface or is it the whole way through our seas?
No, it's fully mixed with the water in the marinas and then flushes in and out from the marina as the tides go in and out. So it gets exported from the marina to the greater harbour environment and from the ports, the ships in the port as well.
And how does the copper actually affect the marine life?
Well, copper is well known to be toxic to marine life, and ideally when you put it in an anti-fouling coating on the bottom of the boat, it just leaches very slowly to the surface of the biofilm, to stop things attaching to the surface and to be toxic at that level. What we're finding here is actually it's leaching faster than we'd like, and it's accumulating in the water around the boats to that much higher concentration. So it's toxic to a wide range of marine life at quite low concentrations, and that's the reason for concern.
What are the current guidelines for protecting marine life, and do these recent stats show that those guidelines are being met?
The guidelines we use are the ANZAC, the Australian New Zealand guidelines for marine waters, and the sort of numbers we're finding here are about the highest in marinas was about 20-fold over those guideline numbers that we'd normally use, so quite a bit higher. The types of organisms that we're going to see affected at those concentrations are your shrimps, your amphipods, juvenile crayfish if they lived in that environment, and juvenile shellfish in the immediate vicinity of those marinas. So they're the most susceptible things. So it's just some of the biodiversity that will be reduced.
How can these hazardous substances be maintained in the future?
The way forward in the future is to use improved technologies that reduce the leaching rate of copper from the boats. In sensitive environments, you may actually want to use copper-free anti-foulings as well. And one of the highest areas we found was in Milford Sound. So there's potential areas of concern like that, very high biodiversity areas. That's just not the whole of Milford Sound, but just the port area of Milford Sound. So potentially if you replace the copper anti-fouling with non-copper anti-fouling, and these are sort of new on the market, and low leaching rate copper anti-foulings, that will result in much improved greater health of the environment.
Visit niwa.co.nz to find out more about the guidelines. Coming up next, it's Heart Week next week. Welcome back. Next week is the Heart Foundation's National Heart Week, so I caught up with Charmaine Donaldson, the Matamata coordinator, to see what this means.
Heart Week is run by the National Heart Foundation, which is a charity, and we're running from the 11th to the 17th of February this year. basically raising funds because we are a charity, and much of our money goes towards research. There's an awful lot of research carried out through the Heart Foundation, but it's also to raise awareness of heart health, because in New Zealand 1 in 4 deaths can be attributed to heart, and yet some of that can be, you can prepare for it not to be. You can look at it in a totally different way.
Can you tell me who is at risk of a heart attack?
Well, one of the first to think about is people with diabetes, which seems a bit unusual, but they are at a greater risk of heart. But people that smoke, overweight, inactivity, which is not always attributable to the young ones, but family history, those all are factors that can contribute to a heart condition.
Because I mean, somebody can be terribly overweight and actually have a really good heart because they're fit, aren't they?
Well, to a certain extent, but it's what's building up in the background. One of the things we do like to advocate now, that you go and have a warrant of fitness. You do that with your car on a regular basis. I know the car costs so much, but what does your life cost? And where does your life relate to everybody else in that family circle? So a warrant of fitness is really not much effort, cost a little bit. Actually, I don't know what the cost of a warrant of fitness for a car is. I've forgotten, I just pay it and forget. But thinking about it, a warrant of fitness once a year is not too bad.
So what does a warrant of fitness on our heart involve?
Going to the doctor or a medical professional, they do your blood pressure, cholesterol, and do 1 or 2 other little tests that they can do. It's purely professional. It's not going to take long, and if they put you in for a blood test, well, you do have to have a blood test for your cholesterol anyway. It's needle prick, which isn't too bad. And it's not going to take too long. And you're going to find out very quickly whether you are at risk of a heart attack within the next 5 years.
And cardiovascular disease can affect anyone, so maybe even the suggestion is that everybody has a heart warrant of fitness.
Oh yes, and actually the younger people, 40s, 50s, dare I say it, men, think they're bulletproof. And no, I'm fine. They've got no symptoms. Maybe they get a bit of short of breath every now and then, but think nothing of it. But that cholesterol can be building up, the plaque can be building up in the arteries, the fatty deposits, and all it needs is the arteries to be narrowing, and then a blood clot, no matter how small, can come and just jam in the narrowed arteries. Now that could either be the carotid artery up into the head, and that's the stroke, or into the heart, and there's your there's your heart attack.
So, because cardiovascular disease just isn't a heart attack or stroke, there's actually also angina and those kind of things, isn't there?
Atrial fibrillation, there's all those little warning factors, but we do have to remember nowadays, if you do get anything like that, there is a wonderful range of medications, much better than I know when my husband died. But these, if you keep again this warrant of fitness and keep checking up on things, you can avoid the heart attack or the stroke.
So what are you, because you are Heart Fit Matamata, so what do you do?
I take weekly exercises for people who have had cardiac events, or I've got some that are there just for diabetes, and I've got some that come along as partners for the one that's had a heart event, so that they both know what they're doing. But it's activity, it's physical activity. We do some to music, we play with balls, we do a variety of things. Some just totally in chairs. because some people are not capable of doing things past the chair, but you can still do things in a chair to keep moving. Movement is very important, and every day.
So what are some of the other things that we can do to try and prevent being at risk of cardiovascular events?
Well, for those that smoke, giving up smoking, which is not always easy, I do realise that. Looking at diet and not going on a diet, because go on a diet, as soon as you come off it, you'll put the weight back on again. It's important to look at what you're eating and maybe just stop eating chocolates. That could be one thing, especially over Christmas. Just look at one thing at a time. Look at the amount of spread that you put on your bread, even cutting out spread altogether. These are just very minor little things, but learn to look at, and there's lots of books that the Heart Foundation give out, and that's what I have in my class, all the pamphlets that go with Heart Foundation. They do put out a lot of literature to assist in all forms of cardiac events.
The Heart Foundation's website is heartfoundation.org.nz, and there are some good tips on there to keep you heart healthy. Just ahead, what is happening at the Hamilton Gardens Art Festival? If you've just joined us, welcome to Central News. It's time to enjoy this beautiful summer weather, pack up a picnic and take the whole family along to the Hamilton Gardens Art Festival. I spoke with event organiser Charlotte Isaac to discover more.
Well, it's a 2-week performing arts festival that happens every year in the last 2 weeks of February in the Hamilton Gardens. So it's pretty action-packed with all of the different forms of the arts. We've got dance and music, comedy, theatre, readers and writers, the outdoor film festival. It's a real extravaganza. We've got 75 different events happening during the festival, so something for everyone.
So who actually came up with this idea?
Well, the Hamilton Gardens themselves came up with it many years ago. This is the 16th festival that we'll run, but originally it was a device to get more people to come to the gardens. Now I don't think they need to worry about it quite so much because 2 million people come to the gardens every year, but it's sort of started small and it's grown bigger and bigger each year to what it is now.
So over what time period does it take place?
Well, it goes for 2 weeks. And so it starts on Friday the 15th with a selection of events that evening, and then it runs all weekend long, and then during the week, the following 2 weeks, every night there'll be several things happening.
And where are some of the events held?
So the big events are on the Rhododendron lawn, because that can take 5,000 people, so that's where the Teddy Bears Picnic and the Sunset Symphony and the big concerts, the Ahika featuring Catch a Fire and the Wellington International Ukulele Orchestra, so they'll all happen on the big Rhodo lawn, but everything else happens in the individual themed gardens. So there's lots of theatre that happens in the Medici Court, which is a beautiful sort of open air amphitheatre, and it's perfect for outdoor theatre. And then just all of the other gardens are used for various things. The Rose Gardens, Rogers Rose Gardens, it gets used for the Foster's Jazz and the Roses, which is a 2-day free jazz event, and also for a different summertime blues event. They're all free, and that's also where the Outdoor Film Festival is. So we try to use all of the gardens if we can to sort of showcase them and the uniqueness.
So tell us about some of the concerts.
Well, the Trust Waikato Symphony Orchestra is always the big pinnacle event. There's like a 200 festival choir and the symphony orchestra sort of coming together in a massive concert. So that's quite large, and that's always very special. It culminates in fireworks and things like that, so that's great. But we've got some other really special, unique things that are happening. Birds of Paradise is one of them. It's a sort of comedy, cabaret, burlesque show that's on the Lakeside stage, and it's going to be very special. She's devised, Morag Brownlee, who organises it, she's devised it especially for the gardens, and it's bird themed, and she uses the lakeside area really well, and it's going to be pretty special and unique, I think.
How much do these events cost?
Well, we try and make sort of 60-65% free, because it's really important to us and to the community funders who support the event that it's as accessible as possible to the public. So we just want people to come down and experience the gardens and experience the performing arts. So we try to make a lot free. And then for the more professional acts, they sort of range from about $20, I think, to our most expensive one is $45 a ticket. So there are some really unique, beautiful, special events that will cost money.
Are they family-friendly events?
A large number of them are. So there's obviously the Teddy Bears picnic, which people look forward to. Everyone knows about it in Hamilton, and families come along and bring their picnics and sort of settle in for 4 hours of entertainment for their kids. But there are lots of musical events that are family friendly as well, not just the kid themed stuff, and it's all in the gardens, it's all outdoors, there's definitely a lot for the family to see.
And what should members of the public actually bring to some of these events?
Well, in the program it talks about if seating's provided. Lots of the outdoor events you just bring a picnic rug and pop it down and away you go. And people can book hampers and things through the Hamilton Gardens Cafe. So you don't have to bring food and drink. There's a lot for sale around the gardens, but people can bring picnics and a rug or a little fold-out chair if they want, and just come ready for a full day and night of entertainment.
So sunscreen would also be a good one?
And sunscreen and mosquito repellent, just in case.
Who are these events sponsored by?
Well, our big Gardens Festival sponsors are Hamilton Gardens himself. Hamilton City gives a lot to the event. Classic Hits, the Radio Network, and Waikato Times and King Street. So they're our sort of big main sponsors, but we're really well supported by Wintec and the University of Waikato and a lot of other community funders like Well Energy Trust, Lion Foundation. It is a lot of support that we get from the community. So I think people recognise the importance of the event for Hamilton and Hamiltonians and the whole region. So lots of people get in behind it.
Visit hgafg.co.nz to view this jam-packed timetable of all the events. And there really is something for all walks of life at this youth festival. That is the news for today and this week. We really want you to be involved, so like us on Facebook and let us know your views. If you have news including your own video and photos, go to our website and hit upload. Thanks for joining us. I will be back next week with more guests from in and around the regions. I'm Hilary Entwistle. Have a lovely evening and a fantastic weekend in the sun.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.